Mark Joyner, thank you so much for joining us on the Entrepreneur Fitness Podcast. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I am so happy you came on. Mark was kind enough to actually get back to me when I reached out to him on Twitter after finding out about his website, Simpleology. I found his website and it actually just blew me away. It's such a cool way to just organize your thoughts and understand how to actually get to a main goal without be getting overwhelmed. That's like the biggest thing for me is like, and a lot of entrepreneurs on my who listen to my show, it's like the biggest thing I hear is like people feel like they don't have enough energy and they're constantly getting overwhelmed. And I feel like the company that you have does a great job in helping with both those things, energy management, really probably, and helping people get out of overwhelm. So for anyone who's doesn't know who you are for some reason, I would love for you just to give yourself a quick little intro, Mark.
Yeah, well, thanks for all the kind words. I'm the founder and CEO of Simpleology. I'm the author of a dozen books that are available in 25 languages. Most of them are about small business entrepreneurship. These days, of course, my focus is on optimizing people's lives so they can get more free time through the process of simplification, which is what Simpleology is all about. Used to be in the U.S. military. I was working the U.S. intelligence mission in Korea for a while. Then I was an artillery officer. Done a lot of other things here and there, but those are the things that are probably relevant to your crew.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Mark. So, will you please tell people about what Simpleology is and where did the inspiration for it come from? You kind of briefly said right there that it's just a better way to organize things, simplify things. But for anyone who, for some reason, hasn't gone on and checked it out and started to organize their life through it, can you talk about what it is? And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, the basic idea, again, as you were alluding to, is it's giving you more free time by simplifying your life. And I really want to drive home for people what that means, because those are just words. It's a marketing tagline.
hmm
They're buzzwords. What does that really mean for you? Well, think about it. Most of us are totally overwhelmed right now, and we're going through what I call this thing called the complexity gap, right? And that's the world is getting more and more complex. The number of exabytes of data are expanding daily. I think it's something like several exabytes of data are entered into the stream every day, and the rate at which that information is being added increases every day. But our brain is still the same. We still have the same brain that we had when we became Homo sapiens. And there is a hardwired limitation in that brain, and that is 7 bits of data in conscious memory. So that is what I call the complexity gap. We can only handle so much complexity, but the world is becoming more complex on a day-to-day basis. So how do you survive? Well, Simpleology gives you a way of managing yourself, managing your life through all that. So no matter how complex the world gets, you can log into Simpleology, and through the process that we walk you through and the habits that we instill in you and help you master, you can keep your equilibrium. You can cut down the amount of time that you have to spend each day on the things that you have to do and still have a very high degree of sanity and health, which I think is a pretty important thing.
yeah, very important. I'd say so. So, is there I heard you talking a little bit about like bits of information that we can process per second. So obviously you must have done a little bit of research on like the neuroscience behind this and our ability to process certain amount of information without getting overwhelmed. Like, what are
Sure.
some of the? I'd love to hear some of the research you found because I'm a big nerd for neuroscience, and I was actually just at the Brain Performance Institute here in Dallas, here nearby, finding out a lot of cool stuff about how our brain makes connections and process information. So I'd love to hear like kind of the science behind the way you organize things.
Well, there are two very, very important things that I would want to bring out about that. One is there is a very famous piece of neuroscience research called the magic number 7 ± 2. Neuroscientist by the name of Miller, I believe at Princeton University, sometime around the 50s, did this paper which showed that on average people could only process about 7 bits of data. That is the median range. The upper ranges, you'll get guys, that can process maybe 9 bits of data or as low as 5. Doesn't really matter, as an individual, what that is for you. Yeah, there are some theoretical ways that we can improve that limit, but it's still a pretty small limit, compared to the overall complexity that we have. So that's one piece that I think is really critical. If you don't understand that, and you don't understand what I call the complexity gap, I think you're going to have a very hard time navigating this world today and understanding yourself. The other thing is there's a difference between the conscious and the unconscious, or the willful and the automatic, whatever language you want to use to describe this phenomenon. We know that there are certain things that we can do in conscious memory, and there are certain things that are adopted by parts of our nervous system automatically, right? Mm-hmm. One way to navigate all of this is to take advantage of the much greater processing power that the unconscious parts of our mind have. Obviously, the unconscious mind can do unfathomable numbers of calculations in the background. Otherwise, you would not be breathing and beating your heart and doing all of these other biological processes while you and I are having this cool, chill conversation. We would not be so chill about that if we had to do that in conscious memory, right? So one thing that you've got to do is you've got to offload this stuff into the automatic. And that's another thing that we do inside Simpleology, is we instill habits inside of you that get you functioning in a way that will allow you to operate your brain in a more optimal way, no matter how complex things get.
So cool. So really quick, I want to touch upon something. I hear you talk about 7 bits information. So many times I heard perpetuated the whole 40 bits of information being able to be processed per second. Have you heard that number before?
40 bits per second? I'm not sure what that's referring to.
Yeah, as far as like your ability to process information.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see some research on that. The one I'm referring to is kind of the standard thing that, the Miller paper, the magic number 7. Yeah, so, bring forth a paper. I'd love to look at it,
Yeah.
And again, these are all, look, these are neuroscientists that are making limited observations, and we look at these papers and we go, there's a scientific paper. It is holy writ. Hey, man, it was just a series of observations, a conclusion about which was made by a human being who has these hardwired limitations that we do. So yeah, we're probably almost certainly going to update this information in some way. But the thing that's important is this. We do know that there is a difference between how much you can process in conscious memory and the amount of information that's being thrown at you. That's, I think, the real key thing here, regardless of what the actual numbers are, I would say.
Do you think, as humans, obviously our brains have not evolved that much since all of this stimuli has been thrown at us, especially over the last 20 years. Do you think, are we getting better at processing more of it? Or is this tool that you have even more important now because we're really not getting better, we're just getting more and more overloaded?
Yeah, I mean, well, have we evolved? Have we not? That's a really interesting question, right? How do you define evolution? And maybe we have actually evolved quite a bit in the last 100 years. If we haven't, I would say the rate. But this is total side tangent here. But I would say the rate at which we evolve is probably going to rapidly increase because the survivability of humans as a species is going to depend upon that. Maybe melding with machines will be part of that evolution. There are a lot of folks that are talking about that. But anyway, back to your main question, have we changed? I would say probably. I would hope so. I would say that there is knowledge that we have acquired about how to improve the performance of humans that has certainly augmented this to a great degree. I would say that the biohacking community has done a whole lot about this. There are great people out there like Paul Chek who have been coming up with all sorts of really, really wonderful interventions to optimize the performance of the human body and mind. So this knowledge, by the way, because of the internet, is becoming more prevalent. People are getting more access to this. It used to be, 100 years ago, we were selling heroin through the Sears catalog. And heroin, no, this is real. This actually happened. Heroin was a non-addictive alternative to morphine, and people were giving it to their kids. You could buy a whole heroin rig, injector and all, and give it to your kids. Housewives were taking it for their nerves. we are updating our knowledge in some pretty profound ways. So yeah, I would say in a big way, we have probably improved that quite a bit. But is it still going to be important? Most definitely, because the amount of data that is going to be available is probably going to be way vaster than our capacity to process that information, no matter how hard we try. It would be very cool if I were wrong, but I don't know mathematically how that would work.
Hmm. Yeah. Cool. Sorry for taking you on that tangent, but I'm just
No,
curious and yeah,
honestly.
yeah. So bringing us back, focused here, I would love to hear, and I'm sure my listeners would love to hear an example of you coming up with some main goal that you had in your life and how you kind of organize it in Simpleology to get you there, so people can maybe start to map out in their mind how Simpleology really allows you to organize your life into getting to a main goal that you've created for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you exactly how I do it for me. So we have an area inside Simpleology where you can define three focuses, right? Or three foci, if we're going to be geeky Latin heads about that. So, you'd have a long term, a medium term, and a short term major focus. My major focus happens to be, a philanthropic thing that I want to do. We don't have to get into the details about that, but that's something I'm moving towards. Everything that I have inside Simpleology is in alignment with me moving toward that. My entrepreneurial objectives inside Simpleology are designed to enable that to happen, right? And the things that I have in my short-term major focus right now are aligned towards that entrepreneurial ambition. So one of the things that you do inside Simpleology is you click a little button every morning called Start My Day. And the Start My Day process walks you through a filtration process, getting you to analyze all of the things that are on your plate, getting you to dump all of the things out of your mind that are in conscious memory. Because there's something really wonderful about this, right? When you write something down and you send the signal to your brain that says, hey, next time I do Start My Day inside Simpleology, I'm going to categorize this information somehow so I don't have to worry about it. It unloads it from that limited, however limited it is, conscious memory that we have, so you have more resources available for you to think more clearly, to perform better. Okay, so I click Start My Day every morning. I walk through that process, and what I am left with is not this, terribly inefficient, quote unquote, to-do list on which most people have solve world peace and take out the trash and everything in between, right? Which is obviously an unmanageable load of information. What I have instead are the what I call high-me tasks of the day. That's high impact, minimal effort, right? If you do the things that are high impact, minimal effort, that are bringing you closer to the things that you want to accomplish, you are mathematically going to be way more likely to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish a lot faster than if you would organize things in any other way.
Yeah. So is that much like the 80/20 in the way you organize information, like finding those things that are high impact, but like you said, like,
Similar, right?
or a
But
little
we,
bit, and it's not exactly right, but it just kind of popped
yeah,
in my head there for a second.
same kind of thinking in a way. I mean, our approach is a little bit different in that we actually use an algorithm to help people score this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the algorithm is based on two vectors. You score these things arbitrarily based on your own play that you want to put into it, on from 1 to 10 based on impact and on ease. So something that would be very, very low impact would be a 1, right? And something that would be high impact would be a 10. Something that would be very easy would be a 10. Something that would be extremely difficult would be a 1. So, for example, if, on my list of things to analyze, I had, hey, be Sisyphus for a day and push this rock meaninglessly up a hill, that would be, a 1 impact, because very, very low impact, and a 1 ease, because that's really, really super duper hard, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you multiply these two things together, and that gives you what we call our high-me score, right? Now, if you've got something that's super, super easy, and then you got something that's super, super impactful, it's a 10 of 10, you multiply that, you get 100, that's going to be great. Now, 5 years from now, when Brandon Epstein has got an audience of, 2 million people, right, showing up for this is going to be an easy 10 of 10 for me, right? Because it would be so high impact when you got a couple of million people in your audience, and it's so easy to show up and have a conversation with you, right? So this would definitely, show up on my list. in that case.
Yeah.
That's the difference between 80/20 and us, is we've got a more or less mathematical approach, but not to detract from those guys at all. I think they're doing some wonderful things, the people who subscribe to that.
Yeah, and I had so many questions popping up into my conscious mind, so I'm trying to hold on to them before they escape me. So,
Well, let me say one thing about that. Okay, now, if you were a full-born Simpleology guy, what you would be doing as those things come into conscious memory, you would be dropping them in your dream catcher. Okay, now your dream catcher is this thing that sends the signal to your conscious mind. So instead of like, now it's all overloaded and you're feeling like a little bit off kilter, right? Like, because this is what happens when our conscious mind gets overloaded. We can't think as clearly. We can't move as fluidly. So that's why you enter this stuff into your dream catcher, and we've got a way to do it through your phone, through text messaging, through your computer, whatever. So just putting that out there for you. Next time you experience this, have your phone dialed into Simpleology and send yourself text messages. Oh crap, this guy just said this wonderful thing. I need to do this later. Just text yourself. Might look a little eccentric, but it will make you smarter.
That's cool. It's funny you say that, because that's like one of the questions I was thinking about. Like, to what extent do you take this, right? Like, so something pops up and you're like, okay, I need to go do this administrative task at some point today. Or maybe I have to do it like right now. And like, you could do it. Or for you, do you take it to the point of like, I'm going to put it in Simpleology no matter what, no matter how soon I plan to do it?
I would say maybe 9 times out of 10, I put it in Simpleology. And out of those 10 times out of 100, I'm usually wrong for not doing it about 9 times out of 10, right? Now, obviously, there are some very, very pressing things that come up. But one of the things that I do with my personal assistant is I have her catch me with stuff like that. I let her know, especially during my work block hours in the morning, where I have everything shut off. I have my Facebook, Skype, every possible distraction is shut off. Her job partly is to keep distractions away. If somebody is knocking on the door and looking for me urgently, she's going to make really damn sure that it's really urgent. If it's not even going to enter my peripheral awareness, because it's so important for me to use my fully optimized, fully focused brain as much as possible. Now, during that time, a lot of little things are going to come to mind. I'm dropping that stuff in my dream catcher and getting back to what's important, because what could possibly be more important than the highest task that is bringing me closer to my goal? If I'm not doing that stuff religiously every single morning, I am wrong. That's it.
Yeah, I love it. And so it sounds to me very much so that it's not just time management, it's energy management, because we only have so much like energy. And so that's why it's so smart. I love the equation you guys have that looks at like, how easy is this? How high impact is it? So it's just a matter of like, you really take into account not just the time spent, but the energy that's going to be expended doing this. And so how much did that play into the creation of this all? And like I'm reading the book Powerful Engagement right now. They talk a lot about energy management versus time management. Can you speak to that at all, and like how your system is created to help you manage your energy? Most people think that time is everything, but really, if you wake up in the morning and you're low energy, like, you can't do too much. I mean, you can force yourself through it, but you're not going to be getting into peak states. You're not going to be able to perform well.
Yeah. There's a lot I would have to say about that. One thing I want to get in here is we have so many interventions for that. And everything that we talk about here is habitualized through a very simplified process. Everything that you need to learn about Simpleology, you will only have to remember 2 things. And that is log in and click do today's training each morning. And what that's going to do is it is going to habitualize the most important stuff. Now that vector between start my day, your daily targets list, and the dream catcher is the very first thing that we teach you, because we know that if you can get that within 2 days, you're going to cut your workday in half and you're going to feel a heck of a lot better really, really fast. Mm-hmm. So we take the highest thing we can teach you, we habitualize that first. But getting back to your question, the reason why I say this is we have other things that we teach you later on. Mm-hmm. So that same approach that we teach you to managing your time, we also teach you things to manage your energy, right? Now, you need to be managing your body in a really healthy way to have optimal energy, obviously, right? But most of us don't know how to do that in a way that is consistent because we're bombarded yet again with all kinds of information about how to optimize the body. Well, we show you a very cyclical, manageable way to keep your energy levels high, to keep your health intact. So that's one thing. The other thing is, because this lowers your stress level, this is going to boost your energy level in some pretty profound ways. Look, you're a really fit dude. You get this, right? You would not be in the physical shape that you're in if you did not understand how important stress management was. I don't know high stress people who have really, really fit bodies. They're rare, right? Because when that cortisol is cranked up way too high, you cannot get in an optimally anabolic state, and you cannot sleep efficiently when your cortisol is cranked up that high. And if you're not sleeping efficiently, your brain cannot defrag itself at night, and your body cannot repair itself, right? So if you can operate in a day-to-day basis with a sense of ease, which is what Simpleology teaches you to do, because it's like, hey man, look, there's no point in me stressing about all this stuff because I know the most important stuff for me to do. I've got everything else, categorized exactly as it needs to be categorized. I'm going to push through my day in a state of relaxed, easy intensity. And when you go to sleep at night after a day like that, you feel like, wow, I really did my best today. I deserve this sleep. I'm going to get this sleep. It helps you in so many ways. When you get up in that next morning, you're going to have an easier time getting out of bed because you're finally going to get a decent night's sleep, right? So, look, you and I could yammer about energy for probably several hours. I've got so many things to say about this, but I think those are probably the key high points that folks need to hear.
Yeah, and they're the key high points because the things that I hear from coaching clients all the time that are entrepreneurs are, at the end of the day, I never feel like I've done enough.
Yeah, man, that is a horrible, horrible way to live your life, because it really is a hell that you're creating for yourself when you operate in that way. So you've got to pull yourself out of that, and you can do it so easily if you just know a few key interventions.
Yeah, it's all about the organization. And so something I like a lot about the Simpleology tool is, like, even people just getting started who, there's a lot of high-level business coaches out there that may help you structure your life in a way that allows you to be more efficient. But I mean, this is a tool that's out there right now for anyone to try that, like, really coaches you up on how you can start structuring your life to achieve these massive goals that may seem insurmountable to you right now. So that's something that I really appreciated, because a lot of people, like, they can't just go and get, high-level $1,000 an hour coach right now off the bat. And this is a great option for any of those people. So definitely appreciate that.
Well, I want to say something really quick about that. There's this great Will Smith story. Will Smith's dad had him tear down and build a wall. Did you hear about this?
Yep, yeah, I love it. Please tell it.
Yeah, man, at the end of a year, they had this wonderful wall, and he understood, hey, man, if you want to build a wall, you just have to do it one brick at a time. And getting a good coach to help you go through that, or if you can't afford a coach, use Simpleology to be sort of your pseudo virtual e-coach, if you will. Then, you just have to remember that and just take things one step at a time. And I think that will really help. It's easier said than done, but it is the key. You have to do that.
It is one foot in front of the other. But as you said before, I wanted to circle back around to this. Something that was a big green light for me about, like, why this system really resonated with me is seeing that section. I think you have, like, a PDF. It's either about energy or it's about biohacking, and it just talks about the different ways to improve performance. And I was like, yep. I was like, the fact that, like, this system, because most of these, like, these systems you see for, like, just being more efficient, they're very mechanical, and they don't seem very human, and it's hard to relate sometimes. And the fact that, like, that whole part of it was implemented, I got to tell you, for me, being, like, a fitness guy, that was like a green light to, wow, you guys really understand the foundation that needs to be created to live a life where you have tons of energy and you wake up and you feel inspired and motivated to sit down and to get on Simpleology.
Yeah, I tell you, look, I've gone up and down in my fitness through the years. I was in the military for a while, and obviously, at a real good state of fitness there. Packed on a whole bunch of weight after that because I was eating the same kind of junk that I was in the Army, but had a much lower level of physical activity. and I know what that feels like, and it feels terrible. But there are so many things you can do about that, just by changing your diet in some really, really simple ways, just by changing your attitude, just by learning how to operate your mind in, a healthier way. You can turn that around really, really fast. But with that said, one thing I want to get out there to folks who may be a little bit overweight, which is most of us in the United States, let me just say one thing to you. Go get a 5-pound weight, right? Carry that 5-pound weight in your hand for as long as you can, right? Just hold it out like this. See how long you last. Well, over the holidays, you're probably going to pack on about 5 pounds. That's, what the New England Journal of Medicine came out with recently. And they also came out with something that was even more profound, and that's that most of us don't lose that weight. Okay. So if you want to be carrying around that 5-pound weight that you have a hard time holding up in your hand every moment of every day for the next year, and add on another 5 pounds the next year, then go ahead and knock yourself out and do what you normally do over the holidays. Okay. But I really want to bring this point home to people, because you can turn yourself around. You can feel a lot better, a lot faster. But man, while you're doing that, it would certainly be a really good idea to get your weight down to a healthy, manageable point so you can have a good horsepower to weight ratio as a human being and feel optimally your best. Do that. Mm-hmm. Don't mess around. Do it.
Yeah.
Got to get that out there, man, because I tell you, I see people who they talk themselves out of this all day long. They hear all of this unhealthy language. Come on, live a little. Live a little? Really? I mean, is that what that means? So live a little means shove a whole bunch of food down my face? No, live a little means have a lot of energy and be an optimally healthy person. That's living a little or a lot to me. So when people start shaming you for thinking about fitness and using all of this really subtly persuasive language to program you into being a fat person just like them, I'm sorry to use that language, but I mean, that's just the reality of what it is. You got to be militant about rejecting that stuff and capture your health.
Yeah. And that's why I always make a point on my show to talk about how important your circle of influence is and the people around you. I mean, if you're around 5 overweight people all the time, making those decisions, you're going to be the 6th person, undoubtedly. And so
it's almost a certainty.
Yeah. And so you got to surround yourself with those kind of people that make it easier for you. And another thing that I want people to understand, you kind of touched upon, is that the tool that you've created would be great for even someone who's maybe trying to lose some weight. But Absolutely. The fact is, it's that's not what we want to be our main focus of our lives. That's not something that's going to fulfill us to get to baseline. So you don't want to have to take yourself from a point where you have to dedicate as your main focus of your life a year maybe to get back in shape versus something like you're talking like philanthropy or maybe your dream business you're working on, or maybe you really want to work on creating amazing relationships, whatever it may be in your life. I mean, there's so many higher level things that are going to bring you so much more fulfillment versus having to take that time to dig yourself out of that hole. And a lot of people don't think about that. They put it off. They go, okay, well, I'm going to do my business right now. And when I get a moment, I'll really dedicate time to losing that weight.
Yeah.
And
you can't. That's, man, I tell you what, I've done that before as well. I'll worry about my health as soon as, right? Really dangerous way of thinking. And I would just say, look, things are going to jazz certain people up in different ways. You just got to be really, really honest with yourself about what's going to jazz you up, because a lot of the things that jazz people up are not socially acceptable. They're not acceptable via their morality that they have been taught or whatever, the values that they think they should have. Get really, really real with yourself, right? What do you want to have? What would really, really excite you? And just accept that. It's okay. I can almost guarantee you that it's probably okay. Now, unless there's something really, really out there that's harming other people, that's not okay. But no matter how weird it is or how, what other people will think about it, it's totally cool. Accept that, embrace that, and let that fire you up and focus on that. And if you can get everything else in alignment with that, you and I were talking about that off camera earlier, the importance of alignment, right? getting the other things lined up. Because I would almost guarantee that whatever it is that you want that's really going to fire you up, being super healthy will probably help you accomplish that along the way. So, you got to get into a habit, into a rhythm, part of your daily life ritual that is going to make that happen for you, and take that really, really seriously.
Mark, I'm so glad that you touched upon something you just said, where you brought the point that you should find out what you really want, what's really going to be compelling to you. Because I think right now, a lot of times, especially like very intelligent entrepreneurs who are even starting off and are thinking about like creating something, creating a business, and honestly, deep down right now, they're at the Maslow hierarchy of needs of just needing like pay the bills and like just getting forward. But like they're constantly being streamed with all this information that like you need to go change the world right now, and that should be your why. That should be your compelling why. And I mean, I don't know if you can speak to this in your own experience, but it's hard to get there until like you've really done what you need to do for yourself and you've taken care of yourself. Did you see that transition in like in your own career as an entrepreneur?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Maslow's hierarchy is just such a persistent meme, is that, people can truly, truly relate to it. If you are gasping for air, you're not going to be thinking about, the starving kids in Uganda, right? You got to get yourself past that. And, but again, it's, whatever fires people up, in the moment, what fires you up may be something different from what fires you up later on. I was watching a really great interview with Jay-Z, and he was talking about the mentality of guys who grew up in projects. I mean, I grew up in similar neighborhoods. So, I understand that culture very, very well, and I had similar motivations growing up. Very, very different from a guy who was raised in a middle-class neighborhood and didn't really have any difficulty early on in his life. Not to detract from anybody's life. Everybody's got their own difficulties. Who's to say whose difficulties are more or less difficult? Doesn't really matter, but it's different, and you need to accept who you are and where you are and be real about that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I don't want to take a ton more of your time, Mark, but there's something that I ask about people who come on my show. And I'm fascinated with flow states and how to like get into flow. And I do a lot of stuff with like neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis to play around and get people into flow. But I'd love to hear an experience that you've had in your life where you're just locked in your zone or flow, whatever you want to call it, you're turned on and you're performing better than maybe you ever had before. And it's really interesting for me, and I've also got feedback from my audience to hear like people who are playing the game of life at a very high level and flow experiences they've had. It's really cool to hear. So do you have a story like that you could tell us?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple ranges of flow, right? So there's the day-to-day flow that I experience through my daily rituals that I have, right? And, a major portion of that is how I use Simpleology. So what I do every morning, I go through the same set of things. I've got a number of things that I do to align myself with where I'm heading in my life, things that I need to do to maintain my body, to keep me healthy, things that I need to expose myself to. So, I turn on, there's a set number, collection of motivational videos that I love listening to and watching. I turn that on first thing. I'm going through my routine, getting myself together. All that information is flown into my head. I've looked at where I'm heading that day and I remember that. I'm like, yeah, that's why this is important. That's why I really need to do this. Yeah, I just move faster and faster every morning when I do that, and I feel better and better and better. And part of that routine, it involves downing a liter of water with a little bit of sea salt, things like that I know are going to be priming my metabolic pumps and getting me ready to go. I go through that whole routine, and everybody should come up with their own, whatever works for you. I go through, start my day in Simpleology, and then bam, I start hitting those daily targets, right? Now, what I do while I'm doing that to keep myself in that day-to-day optimal flow state is I give myself 25 to 30 minute work blocks and then 5-minute rest blocks. In those 5-minute rest blocks, I'll do a meditative practice to lower my cortisol levels, and then I do a few mobilizations and movement routines that I do really quick to kind of reinforce the neurology that I'm trying to reinforce right now. Like there are a couple of biomechanical things that I'm working on in myself right now, and I know that if I do those things consistently, I will be better and better at that. And then bam, I get right back into another 30-minute work block, and I do as many of those as I can stand, right? And usually right up until the point where I have a date with a fitness trainer for the day, right? And then I go do that, pound the absolute bejesus out of myself in the gym, and then I have kind of a more free-flowing block after that. I can do different things, later on in the day. It could be work, could be social stuff. That's open. Okay, so that's my day-to-day flow, and I hit a flow state pretty much every day. I have off days, but those off days almost always are when I veer off the routine. If I start my day by opening up Facebook, answering a text message from somebody, all that stuff veers me off. So I try to stick in that flow. Now, I'll give you another story, one last one, about a much longer flow state. So I've written a bunch of books, that. A couple of them I did all in one sitting, in one day. Okay. Now that was also aided by lots of caffeine and modafinil, right? And I was also a complete wreck mentally for about 2 weeks after each of those states. So I'm giving you those ranges to show you that, yeah, you can do things like take modafinil and push yourself for 18 hours straight and get a data dump of a book out. I mean, that's an awesome thing to have, but there are biological consequences. It is much healthier to have a day-to-day ritual that brings you into a flow state so that you can maintain your health and keep that going for your whole life.
Yeah, Mark, this is actually my favorite perspective on flow that I think I've got from people. So people can see like the two ends of the spectrum. And we talk about modafinil and things like that. I've talked about it a bit on my show as well. And people just need to see it for what it is, right? It's a performance enhancer. It's a performance enhancer. It's the same as like, if athletes take steroids, like they're going to perform a lot better, but there's going to be some kind of physical and, and a lot of times like mental, maybe even emotional negative side effects that come with that down the road. So you just have to weigh that and see, the pros and cons and what's worth it for you. So
that's right.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I loved hearing your flow story, man. And I am excited to really deep dive into Simpleology myself and help myself create more and more flow in my life, because that's what I'm trying to do. And I think a lot of people are trying to do or listening is compounding these daily actions so we get to live a life more so in flow and spend as much time there as possible. Have those aha moments, that creativity, that enjoyment of the process. So
absolutely beautiful.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. My audience appreciates it. And yeah, man, just keep rocking it. Keep on pushing out new awesome features like you have been.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, take care.